two companies, one invention, one future nobody could stop. This is a story of corporate survival and catastrophic failure. In the 1990s, Eastman Kodak and Fujifilm ruled the global photography industry together. Their products sat in nearly every home, every vacation bag, every newsroom, and every family event around the world. But then the digital revolution arrived. One company collapsed into bankruptcy, a titan fallen. The other transformed itself into a global technology powerhouse worth tens of billions of dollars. Tonight on Spotlight Business Report, we examine one of the greatest business divergences in modern corporate history. Kodak versus Fujifilm, same industry, same disruption, completely different outcomes. Spotlight Business Report, data-driven, fearless, fueled. Welcome to segment 1, the golden age of film. To understand the collapse of Kodak and the rise of Fujifilm, we first need to understand how powerful these companies once were. For most of the 20th century, photography was a chemical business. Every photograph required film, chemical processing, photographic paper, and specialized manufacturing. Kodak mastered this ecosystem better than anyone. Founded in 1888 by George Eastman, Kodak became one of America's greatest industrial success stories. Their slogan was simple and unforgettable. You press the button, we do the rest. By the 1970s and 1980s, Kodak was not just dominant, it was an American cultural icon. At its peak, Kodak controlled roughly 90% of US film sales and around 85% of camera sales in America. The company employed more than 140,000 people worldwide. It was an unstoppable monopoly. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, another company was rising quietly. Fujifilm began in Japan in 1934 and slowly, methodically expanded into global film markets. By the 1980s, they had become Kodak's most serious rival. Fujifilm entered the US aggressively. They famously seized the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics sponsorship after Kodak declined it, believing they didn't need the publicity. It was the moment that put Fuji on the map. Kodak viewed Fujifilm as a dangerous rival, but still believed film photography would remain the king for decades. That assumption would become their fatal flaw. Here's the irony that makes Kodak's collapse almost unbelievable. Kodak actually invented the digital camera. In 1975, a young engineer named Stephen Sasson created this prototype. It weighed nearly 8 pounds, was the size of a toaster, and recorded black and white images onto a cassette tape. It was revolutionary, but it took 23 seconds to capture a single image. Management's response, they feared digital would destroy their high-margin film business, the silver halide strategy. They told Sasson to hide the invention. They were protecting their past while the future was being born. Fujifilm took a different path entirely. Their executives, led by Shigetaka Komori, studied the coming disruption carefully. They realized film demand would eventually hit zero. They didn't defend the past. They prepared for the end. Kodak asked, how do we preserve film profits? Fujifilm asked, what capabilities do we possess that can survive after film disappears? That shift in mindset changed the course of business history. Fujifilm realized their core strength was chemistry. Film production required advanced coatings, nanotechnology, and oxidation control. They conducted a massive technological audit to find new markets for these skills. They pivoted into medical imaging, pharmaceuticals, and biotechnology. They understood that the science of capturing an image on film was not that different from capturing an image of the human body. The most surprising move, cosmetics. Fujifilm discovered that 50% of film is made of collagen. They used their oxidation knowledge to create Astalift, a high-end skincare brand. Fujifilm became a beauty giant. They also dominated the market for LCD screen materials. By the mid-2000s, Fujifilm was no longer just a film company, it was a diversified materials science powerhouse. Every smartphone screen likely uses Fujifilm tech. Meanwhile, Kodak struggled. They entered digital cameras late and lacked the hardware expertise of giants like Sony and Canon. They sold cameras at a loss, still hoping for a print-based revenue stream that never came. Then came the smartphone. It destroyed the standalone camera market for everyone but the professionals. Kodak's business model was attacked from every direction. Revenue plummeted from billions to nearly nothing. In 2012, the unthinkable happened. Eastman Kodak, the company that taught the world how to take photos, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. An American icon had finally reached its end. Why exactly did Fujifilm survive while Kodak failed? Experts point to leadership psychology. Kodak's executives were trapped by their own success. They were a victim of the innovator's dilemma. Kodak tried to save the film industry. Fujifilm tried to save the company. Those are two very different missions. Kodak feared cannibalizing their profits. Fujifilm accepted that cannibalization was inevitable. Fujifilm diversified into the future. Kodak remained emotionally attached to its chemical past. Fujifilm became attached to innovation itself. In business, emotional attachment to a product is a death sentence. Today, Fujifilm is a global leader in healthcare and advanced materials. Kodak still exists, but as a shadow of its former self, focusing on commercial printing. The gap between them is wider than ever. Their story is a warning to every industry today, whether it's AI, energy, or finance. The lesson is clear. Being first is not enough. Inventing the technology is not enough. You must have the courage to evolve. The companies that survive are the ones willing to destroy their old business before someone else does. Kodak saw digital as a threat. Fujifilm saw it as an inevitability. And in business, those who adapt to inevitability win. This has been Spotlight Business Report. Data-driven, fearless, fueled. Join us next time as we dive deep into the biggest turning points in corporate history. Subscribe to stay fueled.